Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/IDOWorkHereLady. I want to say thank you very much to everyone who subscribed to the channel and hit the like button. And our first story of the day. I do work here, lady, but my sister does not. Preface. My sister is 6 years younger than me, but we look like twins. It's creepy. I've worked at a resort in the recreation department for 4 years at this point, last summer, and my main job is renting out and doing small maintenance on bicycles. I was 20 at the time of this incident, and my sister was 14. I had this really difficult couple that morning. They were very nitpicky and went through almost 20 bikes before settling on ones that were acceptable. The wife complained about every little thing on every bike, most of which was just normal bike stuff, like the chain was too dirty or the seat was uncomfortable. I finally sent them out on 2 bikes, and I thought that was the end of it. My sister was here riding bikes with a few of her friends, and they were stopped eating lunch on a bench halfway through one of the trails when the lady comes across them. She starts to yell at my sister and demand that they switch bikes because the bike she put her on was not working properly. My sister told the lady that she would not do that and to leave them alone. The lady then began to yell that she should have more respect for the guests and do her job. My sister told her she didn't work there. She must be mistaking her for me. This really pissed the lady off, and she accused my sister of lying to her and demanded that she fix her bike. Turns out there was nothing wrong with it in the first place. While this lady's yelling at my sister, she's trying to explain that she's 14 and can't work at the resort. One of her friends sneaks off and calls me. I was luckily where I could answer the phone, and she explains what's going on. I grab my manager and tell him what's happening, and we hop on bikes and head that way to solve the problem. As soon as my manager pulls up, the lady recognizes him and starts yelling at him that his employees need to be taught some respect. And then she sees me behind him and freaks out. She starts yelling at me for putting her on a crappy bike. At this point, I go up to my sister and tell her and her friends to go to the cafe and get some food and hang out, and I'll go down there and pay for it when I get back. So they leave. They weren't really fazed by the crazy lady yelling, so they were like, yeah, free food. The lady continued to yell at us, so we just told her she could have either one of our bikes, and we'd take hers, so she was appeased. We head back and go back to doing our jobs, and I go down to the cafe and comped my sister's food and ice cream. The lady, when they returned the bikes, demanded a refund, and we just laughed and said she could complain and try to get one, but that it was doubtful. She did write a complaint naming us personally, but the CEO heard what had happened because we filed a security report, and he threw out the complaint instead of adding it to our files. Actually, I do work here, and no, you didn't get the job. Apologies, this is a long one. It happened about 15 years ago, and I actually found my original interview notes from this encounter. Here goes. I'm driving back to the office after a hasty lunch. I've spent the entire morning interviewing candidates for a vacancy in my team, and I've got a full afternoon of interviews lined up. As I drive up to our parking lot, an obnoxious dude cuts right in front of me, causing me to slam on brakes hard to avoid hitting his car. I smack my horn and give him an exasperated WTF look when he looks back at me through his rearview mirror. OD ignores me and proceeds to turn into our parking lot. OD then pulls into my designated lot, and I pull alongside him. Me. You really need to watch how you drive. You almost hit me. OD rolls down his window and extends his little finger. Loud Euro techno music emanates from his car. OD revs his engine and yells back, "Go F yourself!" If this was any other day, I'd be getting ready to respond in kind, but I've got my afternoon schedule packed full of interviews, and I don't have the time or the patience to deal with OD. I shake my head in frustration, but I move my car a couple of lots away just in case OD decides to do something to my car. I figure this is the end of my interaction with OD, and I rush into the office to get ready for the interviews. Our office manager notices that I'm out of sorts and asks if I'm okay. I explain what transpired in the parking lot, and I quickly brush it off. Our office manager's like a mother to me and very protective. I assure her that I'm fine and she can send in the next candidate to my office. About an hour later, I'm between interviews and I hear a knock on my door. It's the office manager with a knowing look on her face. Hey, Roadhim, I think your OD's lined up for the next interview. Send him in, I say. Office manager flashes that same knowing look and nods. This is going to be interesting. A few seconds later, OD walks up to the door and seats himself down in the chair before looking up and realizing who I am. Awkward silence. OD. About just now? Yes, I say. In the parking lot? I was in a rush, stress of the interview. Amazing. OD doesn't even have the decency to apologize. OD then begins to tell me how he's such a good fit for the role, and that's, in his opinion, I need to stop interviewing other candidates immediately, or something to that effect. I keep a blank face throughout the interview and just look at him. I don't consider myself to be a mean person, but it's an absolute joy seeing him squirm in the seat in front of me. I wait for another uncomfortably long pause before leaning forward across the table. OD cringes back in his seat. Me. Your interview began in the parking lot, and I'm happy to say that you will not be getting this job. OD sags visibly and retreats from the room. Office manager's head pops in my doorway 5 minutes later with a huge grin on her face. For the rest of my time at that job, the office manager would bring it up every now and then, and we'd all have a big laugh about it. This experience taught me to always be humble and gracious to other people, and also not be a jackass on the road. And before we move on to the next story, I want to say thank you very much to everyone who's subscribed to the channel and clicked on the like button. And our next story. I do work here, but that's not part of our job. Yep, another on mobile, TLDR down at the bottom. I work at a cafe on the side of a busy motorway by a petrol station. We share the building with Macas, and there's been heaps of people confusing us for Macas. Even though we're predominantly black and yellow with blue polo shirts and our logo on everything, including the door people have to walk through, there's always been a woman asking if we sell wine. Sure, on the side of the motorway. Yes, sure, good idea. Our positions out in the front of the store generally aren't fixed, but I often spend a lot of time in the cafe making people's coffee because I've had lots of practice and I'm fairly quick and good when it gets busy. It's important to note that our store managers and the owner of our little two-store franchise doesn't want us to put sugar in the coffees for the customers. We don't have the sugar packets or even the plastic spoons or wooden stirring rods on our side of the counter. It's always on the opposite side, on the condiment bar. If someone's ordering and asks for X amount of sugars in their coffee, we always direct them to the condiment bar and explain we don't put them in. I know sometimes people like the sugar put in straight after the shot's been poured, and because we're lenient and generally like to be polite and helpful to our customers, we let them know that if they pass the sugars over, we can put them in for them. So there's this Indian guy, and he says he wants the sugars in straight away in his coffee, and he gets told, like everyone else, that he's welcome to pass them over. I'd been somewhere else at the time, and the person on cafe had me take over just as this guy's order needed to be made. I got told 2 sugars straight away in one of the 2 coffees, so I start making the coffees and put the sugar in one shot after he's already passed some over. He then demanded that he needed sugar in the other one too, something no one had told me, and apparently 10 seconds was too long for the shot to sit without having the sugar poured in. I'm annoyed at this point, but I put them in and start making the coffee. I don't normally stir the sugar in, as I find that pouring the milk in stirs the shot up enough to mix it through. This guy's not having it. First he's mad that he didn't get his sugar in straight away, and now he's mad that he has to stir his own coffee. I say something like, "I'm sorry, but I can't stir it for you. I literally have nothing to stir it with. We're not supposed to be adding the sugar and stirring it for you." He starts going on about my customer service and how we're awful and how we need to get better customer service. He then says something like, "It's not my job to stir the coffee. I don't know how to do it. It's not my job. I don't know how to stir it," while intentionally over-stirring the full coffee so it slops all over the counter, which I now have to clean up. He has another go at our customer service and how bad we are before someone, I assume was his wife, comes up and collects a coffee and he starts ragging on about us to her. You were told many times that we don't even keep sugars or stirs on our side of the counter. Some people get mad over the smallest things. Oh, and I told my mom about it. She's the area manager of the 2 stores, and she said I should have told him something along the lines of, "I bet your mother has to wipe for you too." Can't remember exactly what, but that was the gist of it. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more videos, click here, and if you like the videos, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. It's very important to me. We'll see you soon.